Has the commander banning affected the reserve list? Do we have players creeping in to buy cards to replace the cards that have been banned? Well, that's something we're talking about in today's video because this is your weekly edition of the reserve list top 10. And the numbers this week, well, they're a little bit more unusual than you may have expected. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here. Thank you again for joining me this week on our journey down the yellow brick road of the top 10 reserve list cards. A reminder before we start today's video that yes, you can like and subscribe to my channel, but also if you're shopping for any cards in today's video, you can use my TCG Player affiliate link found in the description of all of my videos. Thanks again for that support. Let's dive right into number 10. Now, this is Plateau Revised Edition, right now having an average price of $340.99, market price being $322.05, and depending on where you're shopping in the world, you can find this thing a lot cheaper. The total price count for this one is $12,275.64, which represents 36 sales. Now, of these cards, many would have been heavily played, moderately played, as well as lightly played, and a few near mint. We did see significant numbers of these cards bought this week. Although this is the only dual land on the week that is here on the list, there are many cards that did sell on the reserve list that are dual lands, and that's due to a lot of people taking in a whole bunch of store credit from trading in modern staples to get some of these cards. Now, can we expect this uptick to continue? Probably not, but you never know. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 9 this week, which was number 1 for weeks on end. This is Forsaken Waste, now coming in at $39.99 from its $4 count just a month ago. And that's because, of course, Duskmourn and the fact that this card is just epic in the new Commander deck. Now, this thing had 38 sales this week, which is $1,519.62, but this card at one point was having 400 plus sales around the $5 mark. There's a lot of money that got made on this card, and that's something players need to be aware of. The price won't hold. Now, for 1 black, 2 generic, Enchant World, it says players cannot gain life. During each player's upkeep, that player loses 1 life. If Forsaken Waste is the target of a successfully cast spell, that spell's caster loses 5 life. It's a very nice card. It is reserve list, and until this Duskmourn card was created, nobody thought two ways about it. So what does that mean? Well, maybe we should pay more attention to the reserve list, and maybe a little bit less to the reprintable cards. Reserve list cards are cheap right now. Now, number 8 this week is coming to us from Alliances, and this is Lodestone Bauble, a bit of a novelty card, and I'm surprised it's here on the list this week. It's only $3.42 on average, of course, and if you look on TCG Player, you can find it for $2. 42 sales this week, which is only $143.64. This is nothing to write home about in terms of some awe-inspiring amount of money that got spent on the card. But there's still 42 sales in a week, so what's going on? Number 1, it's a 0 casting cost artifact. It can fit anywhere. 1, and sacrifice the Lodestone Bauble to put up to 4 target basic lands from any player's graveyard on top of his or her library, and that player draws a card. I know back in the day we used this just to thin out our decks, did nothing with it and just wanted to draw a card, but there's other reasons to have a card like this around, so keep it in mind. People who like to discard basic lands can go back and get them later. Armageddon. There's a lot of craziness that can happen. I guess people decided this was a good time to pick this card up. Or was there something else going on? Well, let's take a look at our next card. Now, our next card this week is, of course, coming to us from Urza's Destiny. This is Replenish. This thing has an average price of $94.99, and it saw 47 sales this week, or $4,464.53. That's a lot of sales for a card like this at this price point. A lot of players have shied away from buying cards like this right now, but it looks like players trading in those modern staples have decided to dive into some reserve list cards they know are not coming back anytime soon. So Replenish is a 1 white, 3 mana, and it says sorcery, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to play. Now remember what it says enchantment cards? Think about cards even like the new enchantment land from Duskmourn. That would come back into play. It says enchantment land. There's insanity. Enchantment creatures. You can bring all your creatures back and all your enchantments. This is a card you really can't do without if you're playing an enchantment deck. And the price point being like $50 for a moderate to heavily played copy means it's a pretty accessible card still. It's half the price of a Sheoldred, and it's reserve list. So keep that in mind. Now, our next card, I can't believe it's here, but we're talking about it. We're here. Urza's Saga Tolarian Academy. This card is $102.08, and if it wasn't banned in Commander, this thing would be a $2,000 card probably. 51 sales this week, or $5,026.08, because it's $100 a card, and mostly near mint copies did get sold. So what's going on with the card? I really can't tell you, other than kitchen table magic and like vintage, but let's take a look. It's a legendary land that says tap to add 1 mana to your mana pool for each artifact you control. So it's like Sarah's Sanctum, Gaia's Cradle. It's a different take on the same thing, but there's so many cheap artifacts, tokens, creations, treasures, clues. It gets insane really fast. So a lot of players, I guess, decide to buy this card and just have some fun. I mean, rule 0, right? Now for our next card, we are going to jump over here and take a look at Scorched Ruins. Now, ever since the Eldrazi came out this year, we had this card going up in price, sure, but it did a little bit more than that. 65 sales this week made the number 5 spot with $4,236.70 of sales action. This card is up to $65.18, and it's an amazing card. I've always loved it. I've kept my play set of 4. I even picked up some cheap this year for patrons, if you guys recall. Now, Scorched Ruins here does come into play as a land. It's not legendary. When Scorched Ruins comes into play, sacrifice 2 untapped lands, or bury Scorched Ruin and add 4 colorless mana to your mana pool. Well, Scorched Ruins, Lodestone, Bauble, I see a bit of a correlation here. Maybe a little bit of synergy. Do you think that could be true? Well, we'll never know. You guys will put something in the comment sections. Tell me I'm right or wrong. You'll tell me if you did it or didn't do it. But it's still a great card. It's used in Eldrazi as well as other Commander decks. Vintage, Legacy play. Come on. It's a great card. Now for our next card, guys. Okay. Guys, I'm not sure what we're all thinking out there, but we're still going for the debt of loyalty. Okay, this thing has risen from like the $5 mark to the $7 mark to the $8 mark, now to the $9 mark. 70 sales this week, $643.30, because this card is now averaging $9.19. This card's really come up a lot in the last little while, and a lot of players continually seem to be buying this card week over week, and it keeps making the top 10. Although I have not played against this card in years, and I haven't seen it at any of my local stores, I might expect to see one sooner or later. So for 2 white and 1 mana, it says generate. Get it? Generate? No, it's regenerate. Target creature and gain control of that creature. Now, there is some errata on this card, so always pay attention to that and how it can be utilized. But either way, you can do some crazy stuff, and it's a way for white to regenerate and save itself as well. Remember, you can regenerate your own creature, too. It doesn't have to be their creature. It can be your own. You can save your own friend. You can keep your army alive. I like this card. Okay, now we're jumping into some serious cards. We've got Lake of the Dead Alliances. $87.12 for a near mint copy of this card. 110 sales this week, which is $9,583.20. Guys, 110 sales of a mid-range reserve list card is a serious number. It's a big, big number. Remember the gentleman? Yeah, you remember that. Guys, that's a lot of money. So what are we talking about? Well, this card comes into play. Again, it's not legendary, it just says land. When Lake of the Dead comes into play, sacrifice a swamp or bury Lake of the Dead. Add 1 black to your mana pool, but you can also sacrifice a swamp to add 4 black to your mana pool. Doesn't that work with Lodestone Bauble? Couldn't you sacrifice your land and then put it back on top of your library and draw it again the next turn? That's synergy again, right? I don't know what we're on today, but something tells me somebody's got some plans out there, because there's a few cards being bought this week that just are getting there. But now we're going to go to Final Fantasy, because it's coming up next year. This is Griffin Canyon from Visions. It had a massive amount of sales this week, as it comes in at $8.62 on average with 126 sales, or $1,086.12. Now, the Griffin Canyon's kind of interesting because you can use this already with things like shapeshifters and changelings, okay? But when you look at this card closely, it has a few little bonus effects that make it kind of fun. Number 1, for me, is the fact a card like this doesn't come into play tapped. We hate tapped things. We want to be able to access the mana right away. It may only be generic mana, but still. Add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Now it also has untapped target Griffin. That Griffin gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So that means all your shapeshifters, all your changelings, they can be attacking. You can untap one of them, make it a little bit bigger. That's already kind of cool. But with Final Fantasy coming up and Griffins being a real theme inside that series, people are expecting to see some Griffin tribal, and I don't think they're wrong. I think we're going to see a few new cards that may make Griffin tribal maybe a thing, which means the number 1 card is, oh, you guessed it, Zuberi, the Golden Feather from Mirage. Now, this card comes in at $3.21 on average, and you can see your 194 sales, which is $622.74. Now, the thing about this card, and of course with Final Fantasy again coming as a thing, this thing was at one point, a pretty expensive card. In 2021, 2022, before the reserve list started collapsing in on itself, a lot of people were buying anything under the sun to get these reserve list cards, and this was one of them. So for 1 white, 4 generic, Summon Legends is a 3/3. Zuberi counts as a Griffin. All other Griffins get +1/+1, which again means changelings and all those shapeshifter kind of things. But it also can help any Griffins that are created. And yes, we could use some new Griffins in Magic, some more powerful ones to make it a little bit more for a tribal deck. And we might just get it. So it's always something players should pay attention to when cards like this are this cheap. There's still some on TCG Player for like $1.50. So if you're looking for this card, grab your 4, call it a day. Now let's get to the wrap-up of today's video. Now most players out there will recognize, as a regular viewer, that these numbers are actually a lot higher than is normally found for a lot of these mana-based cards. We haven't seen this many sales of Lake of the Dead in over 2 years, and we haven't seen this many cards for like Griffin's Canyon and stuff moving up. We have seen Winding Canyons, Forsaken Wastes has made it this list when we had the Duskmourn cards called out to us, and of course the Synergy found there. But those sales have been dwindling down, but these ones here are brand new, and there's nothing to connect them with any recent history in Magic other than the fact commanders are facing that banning, and we have a lot of players looking for ways to fill the holes inside their decks and make them whole again, to make them work better, or to rebuild an entirely old deck into a new way and hopefully make it work better when they play with their friends. These sales are, they might be here to stay. We might be having a few consecutive weeks of higher than normal listed sales. We actually had a lot of dual lands sell, but not enough to get the top 10. And we also had a whole bunch of other cards, including Lotus Veil, which got 32 sales. We also had somebody trade in for a Time Walk Unlimited for about $2,590, about Canadian, before taxes. And they used all store credit with stuff they've traded in to buy it. They just say, you know what, I can do what I want. A lot of players are trading out of some of these modern staples, some of these commander cards they're kind of fearful of being reprinted, and they're either trading them in for cash or, of course, going for store credit, which I saw a lot of this weekend. So I will keep you guys apprised of what comes up this week. We may do a follow-up video to see if anything nuclear has happened, but it's very interesting to see where people leave these sales because of a banning. It hurts their feelings. It makes them feel bad, and I would feel the same way with all that value being taken away from me. And, of course, people can equate that to a stock market crash, whatever they want, whatever makes you understand what you're talking about better, makes you feel better about the conversation, that's fine. But the people doing it, a lot of these people are going to the reserve list. They're sheltering back, almost like when people say things are crashing, go to gold and silver. It seems like people are going back to reserve list cards right now. Maybe not en masse, but enough of them that it caught my eye, and we have a lot of new numbers to look at. So thank you again for stopping by the channel today. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. We're only 550 subs away from getting to 25,000. Thanks again for making it happen, everyone. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow with another video. And if you're watching this early on a Sunday, don't forget, I do have a live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day today. And of course, a big shout out and thank you to the fantastic patrons of my channel. Without these patrons, guys, daily uploaded content, it just wouldn't happen the way it does right now. So thanks again to that support and the ability to get this content out every single day for everyone on YouTube. So without my patrons and YouTube membership members, it just wouldn't happen. Thanks again, guys. I look forward to making these videos every day, and I'll see you tomorrow with another one. Have a great day. Welcome back. We're at the end. The Ramble Jamble is on, and I've got to be honest, guys. Those are higher numbers. Yeah. We even had things like Brain Geyser, Fast Bond, cards that would typically be there in the mid-20s for the week. They didn't quite make the cut, obviously, but there were so many of them when I viewed it out in the 20 range that you start looking at other cards and you see how much they're selling. And I mean, whew, that's a lot. I mean, I don't know if it's going to continue. This could be a knee-jerk movement to what's going on, to people being upset about cards that could be reprinted and then jumping into the safety of the reserve list after they've sold off cards. But this week will give us a good indicator. It will really open the market up and let us know what's happening, because the numbers will start flowing in throughout the week, and I'll get a probably video together by Thursday or Friday. Now, thanks again for hanging out. This was the Ramble Jamble, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one. If we can, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in Magic right now. It's kind of crazy. Stay calm, stay cool, stay collected. Enjoy yourselves. It is just a game and it's a lot of fun. Although there is a lot of money involved. I don't care what they say.